Hey, what's up, guys? It's Uchiha here, back with another part of What If Naruto was struck by lightning. And before continuing this, yeah, today is not going to be a double upload. Hopefully, tomorrow will be. And yeah, guys, if you haven't, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel if you like the content of this channel. And without further ado, let's continue with our story. Naruto sat in one of the taller trees of Konoha along a very thick branch. He had his hood up, and the only thing that was visible about him was the glint of the kunai he held. A small shadow skirted down below him. The figure ran across the forest floor, dodging fallen branches and overgrown roots. Naruto watched as the figure came to a sudden stop and leaned against a tree. Naruto's head slowly went up to his ear. "I have the target in my sights," Naruto said. The sound of static reached Naruto's ear. "Has the identity been confirmed?" Kakashi's voice rang out through the small earpiece. Naruto looked down and saw that the target remained in the same place. Naruto sent the chakra into his eyes to confirm the target's identity. He looked away slowly and his hand went back to his ear. "Identity has been confirmed. I repeat, identity has been confirmed. Request to confront the target," Naruto said. Naruto waited several seconds for the message to get through the static. "Negative. Sasuke and Sakura will confront the target. Provide support when necessary," Kakashi said once again. Naruto grunted angrily and turned his headset off. Naruto watched as Sakura and Sasuke shot out of the trees and towards the figure. The figure ducked underneath Sasuke and lashed onto Sakura's body. Naruto watched as the figure proceeded to scratch Sakura. Sakura screamed of pain rang out of the forest. Sasuke shot back to Sakura in an attempt to help her. The figure jumped off of Sakura and slid under Sasuke. It then bonded into the forest. Sasuke growled at the creature's escape and bonded into the forest after it, leaving Sakura lying on the forest around crying over her wounds. Naruto, after laughing his ass off, turned his headset back on. "Kakashi-sensei, Sakura is down." Sasuke has proceeded to pursue the target. Request to give support to Sasuke, Naruto said. "Request denied. Sasuke can handle the target. Give assistance to Sakura and bring her to the rendezvous point," Kakashi said before signing out. Naruto grunted and jumped out of the tree. He approached Sakura to find her whimpering over her wounds. Naruto sighed and then roughly threw Sakura over his shoulder. She started to scream and protest as Naruto carried her, fireman style, through the forest. Eventually, after several seconds of running, the two arrived at a large clearing. Kakashi leaned against a tree while casually flipping through the pages of his latest porno books. When he looked up, he saw Naruto roughly dropping Sakura into the middle of the clearing and jumped onto the tree. Kakashi shrugged and then went back to his reading book. Several minutes into their waiting, Sakura, Naruto, and Kakashi looked up and they heard a loud boom, and again a giant smoke cloud started to rise into the air. Then they heard a chorus of screams and meows. Naruto let out a short laugh while Sakura looked on with worry. Kakashi ignored the smoke and continued to read. After 20 minutes of waiting, Sasuke entered the clearing with a smug cat with his under. Sasuke was covered in scratches, burns, and suits. He walked up to Kakashi and shoved the cat into his arms. "Mission complete," Sasuke said in a pained voice. Kakashi gave an eye smile and held the cat in his arms. "Good, now let's head back to the village," Kakashi said. As Team 7 walked back to the forest, Naruto decided to get a closer look at the cat. The cat was Tora, cat of the wife of the daimyo of Fire Country. Somehow, this cat would escape a highly secured compound and end up near Konoha. Then the daimyo's wife would request a mission for Konoha to retrieve the cat. Now the cat has been a bane in every genin's life for the past 30 years. Its stealth and speed were off the charts. It would manage to hide for hours before actually getting caught. It has since been assigned as a D-rank mission to capture the cat. Naruto continued to stare at the cat. The cat turned and growled at him. "The hell are you looking at?" A female voice rang out. Naruto looked around in confusion at the sudden voice. He started to look around but saw no one else except for his team and the cat. He turned back towards the cat and pointed a finger at it. "Is that you?" Naruto said. Naruto's team looked at him in confusion as he let out a low meow. They then shook it off as Naruto just being Naruto. Weird, nothing else. "Yes, it's me, you fucking retard. I'm actually surprised you can understand me. Are you a cat?" "That would explain the whiskers," Tora said. "Since you signed the Panther clan. And the Panther are in the Panthera genus, who are related to cats. You can talk to animals which are related to jaguars," Kyubi said. "Whoa, Kyubi, never thought you were so knowledgeable." Naruto thought, "Yeah, I've been sealed for about 200 years, so start to learn stuff." Now stop looking retarded and respond, QB said. Naruto looked back up and saw the cat staring at him with a tick-off look on his face. I'm sorry, now I'm not a cat. It's just through some special circumstances that I can talk to felines. So, why do you run away from the daimyo's wife so often? Naruto asked. The cat let out a pissed off hiss when it heard the daimyo's wife. Because that bitch likes to torture me. Every single time she hugs me, I swear I can see Kami. She dresses me up in these stupid outfits and flaunts me like I am a golden statue. Honestly, I want to kill that bitch in her sleep. But I doubt the daimyo would like that, Tora said. Naruto nodded in understatement. He would see how hard the daimyo wife hugged Tora and the remnants of the outfits Tora would rip off when she escaped. They were horrified and horrible. Naruto, are you okay? Kakashi suddenly asked. Naruto shot up to his full height and looked at Kakashi with confusion in his eyes. Why do you ask? Naruto said. Well, you have been growling and meowing at Tora for the past 10 minutes. Kakashi said. So, if I want to talk to cats, I will talk to cats. Now stop interrupting my conversations, Naruto said before ducking back down to continue his conversation with Tora. Kakashi blinked owishly before shrugging his shoulder. He figured that he shouldn't be too concerned. Eventually, Team 7 arrived at the Hokage Tower and gave the cat back to Daimyo's wife. Sakura and Sasuke managed to find pleasure in the pain the cat was given due to the tightness of the hug it was currently on. Naruto felt extremely bad for the cat, but dared not speak against the daimyo's wife. After that, she left. Kakashi turned to his team. Alright team, you are dismissed until tomorrow. Kakashi said. Sakura, Sasuke, and Kakashi made their exit. Naruto was about to, but was stopped by Hiruzen. Actually, Naruto, I need you to stay here. I have some very important information to tell you, Hiruzen said with a sigh. Naruto shrugged and stood in front of the Hokage's desk. Hiruzen signaled him to sit down, and Naruto took a seat in one of the many comfortable seats that littered Hiruzen's office. Hiruzen sighed once again before starting talking to him. As you know, Anko was promoted to the rank of Jonin the week. I was away on a diplomatic trip to Suna. As soon as she was promoted, she was assigned a S-class mission. Now, normally, the objective of these missions are classified, but due to this special issue, I'm able to tell you, she was assigned to assassinate the Rock Daimyo. Now, normally, I wouldn't give a new Jonin this mission, but I was unaware of it. Hiruzen said, well, why so important that you need to interrupt my training time? Naruto sat irritated. Hiruzen sighed and then took a necklace out of his pocket. He put it gently on the table. Naruto looked down and saw it was necklace of Anko. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. It was a setup. As soon as she entered, she was screwed. Anko's dead, Naruto. Hiruzen said. Naruto sat emotionlessly in chair. Hiruzen sat worried. In his chair, he knew that Anko and Naruto had a very close relationship and this would be very heavy on his psyche. Naruto suddenly broke out in a fit of laughter. The laughter wasn't full of mirth or fun, but depression and denial. That's a good one, Oji-san. You almost had me there, Naruto said. Hiruzen sighed and dug into his pocket once again. He pulled out a bloody headband and sat it in the table. I'm sorry, Naruto. Hiruzen said. You can't be serious, Oji-san. Naruto said. I'm afraid I am, Naruto. Hiruzen said, lowering his head. Hiruzen waited several seconds for Naruto to reply, but heard nothing. Suddenly, he heard the explosive slams of his table and looked up. He saw Naruto charging out of his office with a full lightning cloak activated. Hiruzen's eyes widened when he sensed Naruto moving towards the council room. Hiruzen dashed out of his room and armor on. The council of Konoha, made of the head clans and of Konoha and the leader of the civilian businesses, everyone was assembled but were now waiting for Hiruzen. They felt an extremely large chakra signature moving towards them and tensed. Suddenly, Naruto busted through the doors and landed on all four. You are all going to die, Naruto said in a lower whisper that still managed to reach through the room. The council looked in confusion. What are you talking about? The man wasn't able to finish because Naruto found it skimmed through his throat. The rest of the council looked in shock as Naruto decapitated one of the council members. Naruto picked up the head and threw it into the wall. Anbu, contain him! One of the civilians shouted. Several Anbu surrounded Naruto with their various weapons drawn. Naruto crawled and launched himself at the closest Anbu. The Anbu prepared his sword for a strike but was surprised as it started to shake violently in his hand. He watched as his sword flew out of his hands and into Naruto's. Naruto appeared in front of the Anbu and impaled him with his sword. The rest of the Anbu looked in shock that their teammate had been killed so easily, but several got over it quickly. Several Anbu started to go through hand seals and sent several fireballs towards Naruto. Naruto zipped between the fireballs, ducking and weaving to avoid the deadly projectiles. Naruto appeared in front of the Anbu. Naruto threw a punch at the Anbu. The Anbu maneuvered around Naruto's punch and attempted to put him in a grab, but instead of, he had several 100,000 volts of electricity pushing into his body. He fell to the ground, dead. His lightning cloak is powerful. Cover yourself. in the thick cloak of wind chakra. The Anbu captain said. Naruto crawled and launched himself back at the remaining Anbu. While in midair, he went through several hands of lightning release. Zap cannon! Naruto yelled. A giant ball of electricity came flying out of Naruto's mouth. The ball landed in the middle of the group and exploded in a blast of sparks. The three Anbu managed to jump away, but no injuries. But the last two, with the excessive electricity in their bodies, they were slightly paralyzed and rendered useless. Naruto reached into his jacket and started launching hundreds of kunais and shurikens and senbons at the three remaining ninjas. The ninjas had trouble approaching Naruto as they literally had to dodge all of the weapons. After what seemed like thousands of weapons, Naruto stopped. He started to go through hand signs. Again, the Anbu tried to stop him. Lightning release. Chin! Lightning! Naruto yelled. Naruto held his hands up and bolted of lightning hits the closest kunai and watch as the bolts of lightning jumped to kunai to kunai. The Anbu had to dodge as several bolts of lightning were randomly jumping to any weapon that was near them. After several minutes of lightning stopping, leaving some slightly scorched Anbu, they looked up to confront Naruto but saw that he disappeared. They stood silently, hoping that Naruto was not near them. Suddenly, a sword came out of one of the Anbu's chest. The remaining two Anbu turned around and saw Naruto standing behind the Anbu with his sword through his chest. Naruto withdrew his sword and kicked the dead ninja towards the two remaining Anbu. He jumped into the air and once again started to go through hands and lightning release. Running beast, Naruto said. Naruto landed on the ground and slammed his hands onto the table. Two panthers made out of lightning charged appeared out of the ground. They charged at the two remaining Anbus with a roar. The two beasts impacted with the Anbu and exploded into a massive amount of sparks. The Anbu fell to the ground, twitching. Naruto turned towards the civilian council with sword drawn. I'm going to kill every single one of you, Naruto said. Naruto crouched to the ground and prepared to confront the council. Suddenly, Naruto felt a strong pressure to his neck. He fell to the ground unconscious. Hiruzen stood over Naruto with a sigh, looked towards the ninja council and saw that they were actually impressed at Naruto's discipline. The civilian council, however, were cowering in fear. What the hell was that, Hiruzen? One of the civilian council members I told about Anko. Those who had known. They do have very close relationships, so he snapped when he heard that you signed her to the mission. Hiruzen said, that does not excuse him for killing us. Another person yelled from civilian council. Although I'm impressed with the boy's fighting skill, I have to agree with my counterparts. The boy tried to assassinate us and shall be punished accordingly. Yuga Hayashi, leader of the Yuga clan, said. A wave of agreement swept through the council. Say we execute the boy. One of the council members said. An agreement exploded in the room, deciding whether to execute the boy. Silence! You all have known we cannot assassinate the boy. The QB would escape immediately. Hiruzen said, I propose you hand the boy over to me for emotional training. He will learn how to confront and control himself in instances like that. No, I refuse to give the boy to you. Then what punishment that will the boy receive, Hiruzen? We cannot allow this boy to just walk freely. He must receive a punishment, Amura said. Hiruzen sighed and he realized the reality of his former teammates first. He cannot not allow Naruto to go up unpunished for his crime. It seemed biased and would only end him and Naruto in trouble. Hiruzen released another sigh as he slowly started to rub his temples. I propose that Naruto will be suspended from our ninja activities for an undetermined amount of time while he takes a physical and psychic exam. During this exam, he will have all of his chakra sealed off. If he fails, then he is to be put off a ninja duty until he has shown improvement. Or all in agreement, Hiruzen said. With a heavy tone, whisper broke out through the council as different branches of advisors conversed with each other. After several minutes of talking, it seemed like they had made the decision. Danzo stood up and faced the Hokage. We of the council have agreed on the terms, Hiruzen. Danzo said. Hiruzen smiled at this, but only if that he fails the psychic exam that you hand him over to me, or emotional training. Danzo said. Whisper broke out the room as Danzo's demand sunk into the minds of everyone in the room. Hiruzen suddenly shot up from his seat and slammed his hands on the door. Silence! He yelled loudly. Immediately, a dense silence permeated the room. Hiruzen slowly began to look around the room while looking in each of the counterparts and occupants' eyes. I, for one, am getting tired of your stubbornness, Danzo. I already denied your request and I will deny it again. Naruto will be examined by certified Yamanaka psychiatrist and will be decided for there. And that is final. You have no say in this, Danzo, any further. Hiruzen said with a harsh tone. Unlike last time, no whispers came out. The lips of the council were scared and fearful that if they did, they would have to fear Hiruzen's wrath as well. Once Hiruzen saw that no one had any objections, he sat down back with a heavy sigh. You are all dismissed, Hiruzen said while waving his hand at them. After several seconds of hesitation, the council members slowly started to fill out the room. After several minutes, all that was left were Hiruzen, his Anbu, and unconscious Naruto. Tora put a basic chakra blocking seal on Naruto. until I can get Jiraiya here. Also, take him to NRP, Ninja Rehabilitation Program. Hiruzen said, a ninja wearing Anbu-style clothes and with a Torah mask. The figure made several hand signs before lightly tapping the fingers against Naruto's forehead. The Anbu then slung Naruto over his shoulder before disappearing in the sunshine. Hiruzen sighed once again before putting his head into his hands. Link break, Naruto POV. All I could see was darkness. Darkness encompassed my business as I was completely swallowed by it. My head was filled with two words, Uncle's dead. Those words bounced painfully against my skull until I gained a headache. But the headache was the least of my pains. The pain I was feeling in my chest hurts the most. The pain of losing a loved one stung worse than any headache I have ever had, worse than any stab wound, any of my breaking bones of destroying organs. My mind subconsciously registered that the darkness that was surrounding me was lighting up. I was slightly aware that I was now sitting in what seemed to be a puddle of water. I briefly opened my eyes and realized I was inside my mindscape. The pipes of the sewers were now back, but they seemed to be in a troubled condition. The water level seemed to have risen several inches. I could briefly hear the QB try to speak to me, but the words didn't register in my mind. I didn't feel like hearing his wise cracks or stupid comments about me being pathetic. I don't feel like dealing with his shit now. I felt QB wrap one of its tails around me in a comforting way. I flinched at first before eventually succumbing to the warmth it was emitting. While it was no substitute for the pain I was feeling, it helped dully a little slightly as well. As I lay wrapped in the tail of the great QB, I slowly drifted to sleep. Third person POV. QB looked down at Naruto as the boy slept in his tail. Now, usually QB would never be caught doing something like this, but he knew the pain the boy was going through. The pain of losing a loved one was great. QB was left as depressed for several weeks after the sage finally passed away. QB laid his head down against his paw as he gave Naruto one last final glance. He then fell asleep too, unaware of the light blue eyes that were strained upon the very strange sight. Link break. Yakumo shot up from her chair as she cancelled her mind transfer jutsu. Hiruzen saw that she was finishing her jutsu and sat up with apt position. The trio were currently in Hiruzen's office, which had a bed located in which Naruto was currently occupying. Yakumo Yamanaka wrote several long notes upon her clipboard before addressing Hiruzen. Hokage-sama, after reviewing Uzumaki's son's memory and emotions, I have concluded that he is mentally fit, although he shows signs of high-level depression at the level of news of Anko's death. His psyche still remains intact. If anything, I would recommend him a therapist and a little time off of the ninja duty. Yakumo said. Hiruzen sighed in relief but at the news. He quickly dismissed Yakumo before walking over to Naruto. What am I going to do with you, Naruto? Time skip. Sometimes Naruto really hated his life. It has been a week since Naruto returned to his team from his little vacation. His re-welcome was indifference from Sasuke and Sakura. Kakashi welcomed him back with an eye smile, but that wasn't what bothered Naruto. What bothered him was his newfound paranoia. Naruto had the constant fear of being kidnapped once again. He had managed to booby-trap his house to the point where it was almost impossible to enter unless you were Naruto. If it wasn't enough to deal with the paranoia of being kidnapped, the D-rank missions Naruto was forced to go on were pure torture. Even though there were a quick way to get money, they were useless. D-rank missions really showed the laziness that inhabitants of the civilians of Konoha had. Most couldn't even paint their own fence or get their groceries. It was very demeaning to a ninja to do some mere chores. Speaking of D-rank missions, Team 7 was currently in the Hokage office trying to get one. The third Hokage was currently shuffling through his files. Let's see, you can paint Shimino-chan's fence, or you can walk Inuzuka's docks, or you could. Hiruzen went quiet when the files he was currently holding transferred into piles of ash due to Naruto's lightning bolt. I refuse to do any more of these useless chores. Naruto grunted out. Kakashi's sweat dropped at Naruto's outburst while Sakura and Sasuke nodded their heads in agreement. They both were tired of the missions also and wanted to get something more excited. Hiruzen looked down at the pile of ashes that decorated his desk and looked up at Naruto. His eyes were currently twitching in aggravation. He then took a heavy breath and looked at Naruto with a sickening sweet smile on his face. Since you are so eager to advance in your ninja career, I will give you a mission that is the mandatory for all Kenis to complete. Kakashi, I am going to assign you and your team to raid. Hiruzen said. Kakashi dropped his book when he heard Hiruzen said raid. His eyes showed a massive amount of shock. Hokage-sama, with all due respect, don't you think they are too early in their career to go to a raid? Kakashi said, the mission is mandatory for all ninjas, so why don't you finish it? Now, there will be no objections. Here are your mission information. You have a week to complete the assignment, Risen said while throwing a scroll at Kakashi. Kakashi caught the scroll with a sigh. Sakura looked at him with confusion in her eyes. Kakashi-sensei, what is a raid? Sakura asked. I'll tell you later. Meet me at the village gates in an hour. Be prepared for a long week mission. Make sure to bring weapons as well, Kakashi said before disappearing in a sunshine. Team 7 dashed out of the room, wanting to get prepared for their first C-rank mission. Link break. Naruto stood in his room taking account of his weapons. 3,000 kunais, senbons and kunais. 50 explosive tags, 10 chakra pills, sharpening stone, 50 yards of chakra strings. Naruto continued to list off his supplies. Hey dumbass, are you going to war or something? Kyuubi asked. Naruto growled at his nickname. There is nothing like that. I'm just preparing, that's all, Naruto thought back. Naruto sealed his supplies into a ceiling tattoo. He then off to the door. After activating his security, he started to walk through the village. Naruto watched as civilians carried on their lives, with unaware of the danger that stood outside of the walls of Konoha. Ignorant, pathetic villagers, Naruto thought with a sneer. Hey, don't forget you were once like them. An ignorant and innocent child, unaware of the dangers and always surrounded you. Kyuubi said, yeah, but I was 5. These people are grown adults. There's a difference here, Naruto thought back. After having his little conversation with Kyuubi, Naruto arrived at the gates. The only person that was present was Kakashi, which surprised Naruto immensely. Naruto walked up to Kakashi and sat down next to him. Hello, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto said politely. Hello, Naruto-kun. Where is your equipment? Kakashi asked. Naruto lifted his arm and showed the ceiling idea that ran down his arms. Although confused about where Naruto got the tattoo, Kakashi understood its use. The two then descended into a comfortable bout of silence. As Kakashi read his book and Naruto closed his eyes to get some rest. After several minutes of comfortable silence, Sasuke and Sakura arrived. They both had book bags that seemed to be filled to the brim with items. Sakura looked extremely nervous while Sasuke had an aura of confidence. Once Kakashi saw his team was there, he put down his book. Okay team, we will be going on a raid. There is a bandit group that has been bothering one of the villages that lay near the border of our country. Our mission is to eliminate them, and by eliminate them, I mean kill them, Kakashi said with a serious tone in his voice. Sasuke and Sakura looked on with shock. Naruto remained stoic on the outside, but was actually pretty surprised. Kakashi smiled at his students. But do not worry, your amazing sensei will be with you all along the way, to help you through the process, Kakashi said in an attempt to calm his genin down. It practically worked, as Sakura and Sasuke seemed to calm down. Now follow me, we should be there by tomorrow night. We will rest when the sun goes down. Move out, Kakashi said while bounding into the forest of Konoha. Sasuke and Sakura and Naruto dashed into the forest after him, preparing themselves mentally for the challenge that awaited them. Link break. Team 7 landed in front of a pair of gates. These gates belonged to the village of Kishimoto, often nicknamed as Hinotani or Fire Valley. It was called this because it was located on the edge of a gigantic valley. Kakashi turned to his team and a serious look in his eyes. Now, we will split up for scouting and gathering information on these bandits. Sasuke and Sakura, I want you to stay around the market district and I will look for information in residential area. Naruto, I want you to stay in the slums. With your experience there, you will be able to connect with people easily, Kakashi said. Team 7 nodded their understood their orders. We are to meet in front of town hall in 4 hours. If you get any type of information, spike your chakra and I will be there immediately if you ran into any trouble, okay? Now go, Kakashi said. Sasuke and Sakura and Naruto dashed into the city. Link break. Naruto immediately knew when he hit the slums of the village. The difference between the regular village and the slums were night and day. The streets were covered and crowded with peddlers, beggars, and thieves. Smoke billowed from the chimneys that littered the buildings. Buildings are dark cloud that seemed to mirror the mood of the village. All in all, it was home for Naruto. Naruto walked through the streets trying to stay inconspicuous as possible. He would run through alleyways, duck through shops, and hide in people's shadows. This allowed him to gather information stealthily. Did you hear what they did to Shizuki's daughter? Yeah, I heard they took her as payment. What a shame. I heard they took her directly to their base inside of the forest. Well then, I doubt she is alive or wants to be alive right now. Poor girl. Naruto stored the memories in the back of his mind and entered one of the bigger and shifter bar of the village. The bar was filled with dirty looking individuals, burly men drinking massive amounts of alcohol and prostitutes trying to find business. Naruto sat down in the booth chair that was located in the corner of the bar. The bartender slid down to him and curious look in his eye. Aren't you a little too young to be drinking in the bar, boy? The bartender asked in a gruff voice. Naruto looked at him with a hostile look in his eyes. Aren't you a little too broke to be bossing up business? Naruto asked. The bartender looked at the boy for several seconds before shrugging his defeat. So what do you want? The bartender said. Just bring me a glass of water since you're so worried about my health. Naruto said in a mocking tone. The bartender let out a laugh before pouring Naruto a glass of water. He sat it down on the counter and leaned on it while looking at Naruto. So, why are you here, boy? You don't look like a native. The bartender asked. Naruto took a long sip of his water before replying. I was looking on some information about a certain bandit group that has been terrorizing this village. Naruto said. The bartender's eyebrow rose as he heard the information. He grabbed Naruto's empty cup and filled it back up. He then placed it back in front of Naruto. Naruto took a long sip before his eyes short widened. The water is poisoned, Naruto said. Oh shit, Sherlock, QB said. Naruto set the glass back down on the table and looked at the man. I think I may know. Why don't you come to the back so we can talk privately? The bartender said. Naruto nodded and walked behind the bar. The man led him into a room and closed the door behind him. Suddenly, 5 men jumped out of the shadows that populated the room. Naruto could obviously tell the men were untrained bandits. I was expecting a girl this time, Kimi. One of the bandits spoke out. The bartender walked in and looked at Naruto with a sickening look in his eyes. Shut it, Kimimaru. You can use him for labor. The now named Kimi said. The bandits suddenly looked at Naruto as they heard him snicker. Sometimes I have to thank Kami for idiots like you. The patrons of the bar suddenly heard an array of screams rang from the door. Naruto had just gone through. Of course, they shrugged this off as if it was a natural occurrence for them. It made even more sense since bartender had dragged the boy back into the back room. They were all, however, shocked when they saw the boy who thought was doing the screaming casually walk out of the bar while holding Kimamaru on his shoulder. They were shocked even further as Naruto walked out the front entrance of the bar, whistling a jaunty tone with a huge smile on his face. Eventually, the patrons got over the shock and returned to their drinking. After all, weird shit happened in their city all the time. Link break. Sakura was very annoyed right now. First of all, she was miles away from her home village, completely separated from her regular human civilization. Second, her sensei had put her with Sasuke-kun, but then he decided to split up. Now she was stuck in a village she didn't know, trying to gather information about a group of bandits she would have to kill. Killing the bandits had been at the front of her mind for a while. It would be the first time she would have to kill anyone. Imagining would flashing through her mind as her head tried to comprehend how to experience the scenario. It had caused her to daydream and have nightmares at night. It wasn't a very good experience for her. Sakura had been searching for information for several hours. She would periodically ask civilians bluntly if they knew any information about the bandit group. She was met with frightening features and silence. After a while, she gave up and decided to see if the rest of her team was in front of the town hall. She trudged through the town with a depressed expression itching on her face. After several seconds of walking, she finally arrived at the front of the town hall. She saw Sasuke and Kakashi there. Her expression immediately brightened when she saw her Sasuke. She ran over and greeted them enthusiastically, greeting them. Hey Sasuke-kun, Kakashi-sensei, Sakura yelled. Kakashi gave a curt nod while Sasuke grunted. Sakura stopped in front of them and looked at them in confusion. Where's Naruto? Sakura asked. Kakashi was about to reply, but something caught his attention. He heard murmuring coming towards his direction. He turned and face took an expression of shock. Naruto was walking straight towards them with a heavy set of man thrown over his shoulders. Sakura and Sasuke turned around and saw their teammate carrying a man over his shoulder. Naruto walked up to his team and looked at them with an innocent smile on his face. Hey guys, I got us a very potent source of information, Naruto said excitedly. Kakashi, Sakura, and Sasuke sweat dropped at Naruto's non-gentle-less reply. Well, it is getting a little late. I guess we can rent a hotel room and I can give you an interrogation class, right? Kakashi said. Sakura and Sasuke slowly nodded while Naruto wholeheartedly agreed. Kakashi led them through the market districts During their walk, Sakura and Sasuke walked together and would sneak glances at Naruto's happy figure. To the both of them, their teammate was an enigma. He sometimes acted carefree and innocent, yet sometimes they saw a part of him that was downright evil. It was like a flash of lightning. He could change his demeanor. He would become explosive. It was weird. To Sakura, they scared her. She felt unsafe around her teammate. She always knew in the back of her mind that Naruto wasn't as he always seemed. He wasn't the carefree and innocent boy that could make even the most seasoned veteran let his guard down. No, he was a wolf in the sheep clothes. He could kill her in a second, and she knew that. Sasuke and Naruto confused him and angered him. Like Sakura, he noticed that he had two sides to him. Sasuke knew that if push came to shove, Naruto would shove his sword into his chest without a single second of thought or remorse. Sasuke knew that Naruto was stronger than him. This would harm into his head by the massive amount of spars that Naruto would literally decimate Sasuke. This scared and angered him. He never wanted anyone to have the power of death over him. Never again. Not after Itachi. Team 7 finally arrived at the hotel. While it wasn't very classy, it was comfortable and homey. Kakashi paid for their room and led his team to a room. He tied to still unconscious man to a chair. He then turned to his team. Okay, let's start with our lesson. When your target is unconscious, it is wise to awaken him as painfully as possible. It would recommend an electrical shock. It is painful and is guaranteed to awaken someone, Kakashi said. Kakashi went through several hand signs and then clasped his hand together. For several seconds, he seemed to be in a deep state of connection and concentration. He then slowly started to move his hands. An electrical current seemed to be jumping in between his palms. He slowly moved his arm, placed it on the man's shoulder. Team 7 watched as the man literally jumped out of his seat. His eyes snapped open and he screamed in pain. He slammed down in his chair and looked around frantically. His eyes looked on Naruto and a snarl came into his mouth. You pathetic little brat. I will fucking kill you the moment I get out of this chair. I'll slaughter you and your whole family. The man was silenced by Kakashi slamming a seal tag on his mouth. Most of the times when your target come out of the unconsciousness state, he will be pissed off. This is when you slap the seal over his mouth. This will shut him up, and all you have to do is wait for him to calm down, Kakashi said, while turning around. Kakashi's sweat dropped as he observed his team. Sakura and Sasuke seemed to be slowly nodding while following his words, but Naruto had a large pair of glasses on and was currently taking a huge amount of notes on his notepad. Where he got it from, Kakashi didn't know. After several minutes of wild, muffled screams from the captured prey, the man relaxed. When he was still shooting extremely dirty glares at Naruto, he had stopped screaming obscurely towards him. When Kakashi saw this, quickly ripped off the ceiling tag. Now, we are starting to questioning, Kakashi said. Kakashi turned to the man with a hard look on his face. The man returned that look tenfold. Who are you? Kakashi shot off. Fuck you. The man answered back. Kakashi narrowed his eyebrow. His hand shot up and implanted itself on the man's shoulder. The man started to scream in pain as thousands of volts of electricity shot through his system. Kakashi kept his hand through the man's shoulder for several seconds before letting it go. The man was left panting, hoarsely in pain. Kakashi gave the man a nice smile. Now, I'm going to ask you again. Who are you? Kakashi said. The man remained silent for several seconds while staring at Kakashi. Kakashi sighed and then raised his hand. Electricity arced around his fingers, doing an intricate dance of power that seemed to be able to intimidate the thoughts of foes. The display of power managed to scare an answer out of the man. Kimaru Kishimino, Kimaru said, still panting. Kakashi's eyes smiled at the answer. Good, it looks like we're getting some progress here, aren't we? For the next hour, Kakashi would repeatedly ask Kimimaro about the bandit camp, the location, number, strength, weaknesses, and leaders. The bandit camp were somehow nearly 200 strong. They were led by a low-class Nucleans from Mizu. They had very little training but were armed with to teeth. Once Kakashi finished interrogating the guy, he knocked him out and then turned towards his team with a serious look on his face. Now that we have the interrogation of our target, we put the information to use. Due to their numbers, I think a stealth attack will work best. We will attack them using the cover of night. Now, since we still have quite the amount of time before nightfall, we can use this time to finally get something to eat. Now, would you like Sensei to treat you to dinner? Kakashi asked sweetly. Sasuke grunted, which Kakashi took as yes. Sakura, seeing that Her crush had agreed to the dinner, wholeheartedly agreed with him. Naruto thought politely declined. I'm sorry, Kakashi-sensei, but I am not feeling very hungry. Naruto said, complete bullshit, Kyuubi said. Kakashi waved off the excuse. Don't worry, Naruto, just be back here by 8. We will need some time to prepare. Kakashi said. Naruto nodded and walked out of the door. He then slowly started his trek through the village. All through the village, he could see the efforts and effects that the bandits had on the village. The market was filled with inflation. Products that were normally cheap and affordable for most were now almost 5 times higher. Beggars literally littered every street's corner. Whores and prostitutes stood on the streets, trying to earn a quick buck by selling their bodies. Children ran through the streets, secretly trying pilfering money from the unaware merchants. It was a very sad sight to see. It always amazes me how one person's greed can equal to another's grief, Naruto thought to himself. Naruto suddenly stopped when he felt something tug on his jacket. He looked down and saw a young girl tugging on his jacket. She had a brunette hair and looked to be 10. Her hair was matted with dirt and she basically had rags for clothes. The rags could barely cover her private parts. All in all, it was not pretty sight. Can you spare me some food or money? The girl said in a soft voice. Naruto's eyes lightened as he knelt down to the girl. He took a quick inspection of her and saw she was clearly malnourished. He looked as if she hasn't eaten in days. Naruto looked at her with soft eyes. Where are your parents? Shouldn't they have food? Naruto asked. Naruto immediately knew this was the wrong question to ask. Tears immediately started to pool in her eyes. The tears slowly started to trickle down her cheeks. Naruto's hand closed slowly up and wiped away the tears. The girl smiled at the gesture before finally speaking up. My dad abandoned me and my mother was killed. The girl started to break down as the memories of her mother death came crashing down on her. Suddenly she collapsed to her knees as the painful memories bombarded her psyche. Naruto, seeing the young child was troubled, wrapped her in an warm embrace. Naruto felt the girl tense and relax. After several seconds, the girl continued to cry and hiccup for several seconds, while Naruto still embraced, which made a very strange sense for the pedestrians that passed by. Eventually, the girl recovered from her momentary breakdown. Naruto, seeing that the young girl was deeply troubled, decided to help her out. Why don't we get you something to eat? Naruto paused as he realized he never got the girl's name. The young girl saw that and decided to help Naruto out. My name is Amai. The newly named Amai was a girl. Naruto grinned at the name and started to lead the girl to one of the closest food stands. Naruto entered the stand and immediately knew that it was a ramen stand. His eyes brightened and he dashed to a seat with Ame in tow. He slammed down on a seat with Ame doing the same. She looked dazed at the sudden increase of speed. 5 miso ramens for me and 1 for my friend, Naruto shouted joyfully. Naruto, after ordering the ramen, looked at Ame to see how she was doing. He could see her shyly trying to avoid eye contact with anyone in the stand, making herself unnoticeable. Don't worry, Ame-chan. I'll make sure nobody will hurt you, Naruto boasted loudly. Ame blushed slightly at the chant but smiled brightly when she heard Naruto's declaration. She nodded and visibly became less tense. Naruto grinned at this and decided to try and start a conversation. So, Ame-chan, tell me about yourself. What do you like and dislike? Do you have any hobbies? Naruto asked curiously. Well, my name is Amai. Obviously, I'm 11 years old. I like rain, flowers, and snow. I dislike hot weather, bandits, and perverts. My hobbies are collecting flowers. What about you, Naruto-san? Amai started off shyly but slowly got more confident as her speech went on. Well, my name is Naruto Uzumaki. I'm 13 years old. I like lightning, thunder, and ramen. I dislike desserts, hot weathers, and rapists. My hobbies are sitting out in thunderstorms and training, Naruto said cheerfully. Ame looked confused at Naruto's almost obscene behavior towards lightning but had no time to question as their food was put on the table. Yay, finally, Naruto said, while suddenly taking a pair of chopsticks out. Where he got them from, Ame didn't know. Amai then watched in amazement as Naruto seemed to destroy his 5 bowls of ramen. Her shock continued to grow as she heard him order another 5 bowls. Naruto looked over to Amai, only to see her ramen untouched and her looking at him with shock written all over her face. What's wrong, Amai-chan? Why don't you like ramen? We can go somewhere else if you want. Amai could hear the disappointment in Naruto's voice and it hurt her. He started to frantically wave her arms in front of her. No, it's not that, Naruto-san. It's just I have never seen anyone eat ramen like you, Amai said. Naruto gave an embarrassed smile for apology. He then gestured to the untouched ramen that remained in front of Amai. Amai looked at it with a questionable look. She had never had ramen before, so this would be a new experience for her. She slowly broke apart her chopsticks and dipped them into the broth. She swirled the noodles around her chopsticks and brought them up to her mouth. Her mouth enclosed around the stick surrounded by noodles. Amai closed her eyes as the flavor of noodles bombarded her taste buds. She let out a moan of satisfaction as she found that she actually enjoyed the meal. She quickly dipped the chopsticks back into the ramen and swirled around some more onto her chopsticks. Seeing that he had successfully converted someone to the goddess of ramen, Naruto sat back in his chair with a content of smile. For the next 2 hours, the two sat in the ramen stand, sharing conversation but random occurrence, just enjoying themselves. Eventually, Naruto had to leave because of his mission. Do you have to leave, Naruto-kun? Amai had gotten comfortable enough around Naruto to be able to use kun horrific. Of course, the process was sped along by Naruto constantly pestering her to do so, and the occasional tap on the head. But eventually she got there. But now the two must separate. Unfortunately, Amaya-chan must. I promise I'll see you tomorrow, Naruto said. Amaya frowned but nodded nonetheless. Naruto gave her a quick hug before dashing out of the stands, leaving Amaya alone. Or not. What Amaya didn't know was that Naruto was currently standing at the back of the stand and going through hand signs. He slammed his hand on the ground and a clone of himself seemed from the lightning. The clone was an exact replica of Naruto. Naruto looked at the clone with a harsh glare. You are to trail Amai and make sure nothing, and I mean nothing, absolutely nothing, is going to happen to her. Make sure to stay well hidden. Okay, Naruto said in a strict tone. The clone gulped in fear and nodded to his master. Naruto, satisfied with the response, disappeared in a bolt of lightning. Link break. Kakashi, Sakura, and Sasuke were currently sitting in their hotel room waiting for the arrival of Naruto. Kakashi was off in the corner of the room reading his book. He would occasionally let out a small perverted giggle that infuriated and disgusted her. Sasuke was going over his equipment for the upcoming raid. Sakura had started to do so the same but got caught up watching Sasuke. Naruto suddenly appeared in the room with the roar of thunder. Kakashi's book flew into the air as he jumped into a defensive stance. Sakura shrieked in fear and Sasuke also jumped in fear but soon recovered. All of them relaxed, however, when they saw it was Naruto. What the hell, Naruto Baka? You scared us, Sakura said. Naruto shrugged and then sat on his bed. He looked at Kakashi expectantly. So are you guys ready? Naruto asked. Kakashi gestured to Sasuke's weapon, asking the question of where was his. Naruto grinned and unzipping his jacket, but Team 7 saw was the closest thing to a walking armory. Hundreds of senbons, kunais, and shurikens seemed to line to his jackets. Kakashi was further surprised when he noticed that Naruto's jacket had several seals and probably contained several more hundred weapons. After seeing Kakashi's approving nod, Naruto zipped his jacket back up. Kakashi rounded up his team and headed out of the front door. They walked through the village at a civilian pace. They reached the village gates and were allowed to leave. As soon as they stepped out of the village border, they rotated towards the forest. They dashed into the forest. Okay, we now know that the planet cap is approximately 1,000 yards from the village. When we get to the camp, Naruto will cover the east, Sakura will cover the west, to the north, and Sasuke to the south. Our mission is to kill, not to stun. Everyone in your side is marked. Show no mercy or it will cost you your life, Kakashi said through their wireless headsets. Sasuke nodded with a determined look in his eyes, while Sakura seemed to be hesitant. Naruto just looked bored. Just another day of your average ninja life. Killing bandits, saving damsels in distress, and being a badass, Naruto thought to himself. Shut up, Brad. I'm trying to fucking sleep here. Kakashi QB roared out loud through his mindscape. Looks like the grumpy old fox finally woke up. Have any nice dreams yet? Naruto asked. Yay. I was trying to sleep, and here you are, teasing me. I was tearing you apart, and your whole village as well. I rolled around in your blood as if it was my own personal bath. That was my dream, and you interrupted it, you little shit, QB said. That sounds pleasant. Wish I could have taken a part. But now I have something to do, so please, shush, Naruto said. Team 7 suddenly broke apart with Naruto going right, Kakashi going left, Sasuke advancing while Sakura fell back. Link break. Sakura started to slow as she saw the glow of a gigantic campfire. She slowly crept through the trees and entered into a gigantic clearing. It was clearly man-made before the sight of uneven stumps and patches of dead grass. Hundreds of bandits were seen mulling around the camp. Sakura looked in shock. The man they interrogated didn't say anything There were this many. We seemed to have been misinformed about their numbers. Switch to plan B. Stealth attack only. Handle the stragglers first. The handle the drunks or sleeps. If possible, avoid crowd engages. Kakashi's voice rang through the microphone. Sakura gulped in fear and slowly pulled out the kunai. She spotted a man that was walking towards the woods. She guessed the man had to use the bathroom. She slowly made her way towards the man. She ended up behind him as he unzipped his pants. She heard a sigh of relief of the noise of running water reaching her ears. Sakura slowly got closer and closer as the man continued to pee. She was about a foot away from the man before she raised her kunai. Her hands started to shake as an image of man's dead body reached her mind. Her hands came down and the blunt end of the kunai impacted against the man's temple. The man came crumbling down in a pile of flesh. I can't do this, Sakura said while shaking. She knew that they were ordered to kill on sight, but she just couldn't. She dragged the man further into the woods and covered his body with leaves. She then advanced into the camp. She reached a tent and sneaked into it quietly. She saw three men asleep. The smell of alcohol reeked from the men. Sakura pulled her kunai out again. She raised it and once again her arm started to shake. Flashes of blood and the smell of death somehow reached her. She slammed her kunai against the temple of the man, hoping it would keep him unconscious for a little longer. Sakura contained this process for the next hour. She would sneak into the tents, knocking out the drunk bandits and slamming her kunai against the unconscious ones. Eventually, she finished her side. She started to make her way into the center, hoping that the team had already met there. Her hands reached up to her headset. My side is Sakura was cut off by a hand covering over her mouth. Sakura craned her neck and her eyes widened as she saw the man who she had first knocked out was currently holding her. You fucking bitch, I should have killed you right now, but instead I'm going to have a little fun, the man said. Sakura's eyes widened as he felt the man grope her. She bit his hand and screamed loudly. Link break. Naruto was currently having the best time of his life. He was completely in his element. They provided perfectly coverage of him. Naruto saw four men stumbling off away from the main camp. The men were obviously beyond intoxicated. They could barely walk straight and had to lean on each other for their movement. Looks like I found myself some targets, Naruto said with a glee. Naruto jumped down from the tree he was pressed and silently dashed towards them. Link break. Kenichi was currently having them time for his life. He had joined the bandit group when he realized that it was the best option for him. They treated him like a brother and he was forever grateful for that. Kenji was currently stumbling back to his tent with his three best friends, Kimi, Asuna, and Michi. They were drunken, blabbering about their past exploits. Remember that time when we worked for the Gado guy? Kenji asked with a drunken slur. The four friends busted out a fit of laughter. Yeah, we got so much pussy for that town, Kami said. The four then went into another fit of giggles. The four, however, stopped when they heard a loud snap of branch. They turned around, sound with a suspicious look. Who is that? Kenichi asked with a slur. Nobody answered. Kenichi started to inch towards as his three friends stayed back. Kenichi got the edge of the forest and peered into the inky sky. Is anybody out there? Whoa! Kenichi was interrupted as he was suddenly yanked into the bushes by an invisible force. The three bandits slid into a sloppy defensive stance. Kenichi, what's wrong? Kimi asked. The three got no response except for a ruffle of leaves. Suddenly the bush started to shake violently. A body was sent flying up into the air. The three bandits looked in shock as the dead body of Kenichi was flying through the air. Them being distracted by the flying dead body cost them their lives. Naruto dashed out of bushes with his sword drawn. To the bandits, he was all just a blur. They saw a white blur approach them and then retreat into the bushes. They were confused until they felt a pain on their neck. The pain increased as they felt a wet sensation run down their neck. They looked down and realized that their throats were slit. They realized that they were dying because of the massive amount of blood loss they were losing. Of course, the process was sped up by when Kenichi's body suddenly dropped onto them. Upon doing so, opening their wounds even further and twisting their necks in an irregular angle, they fell to the ground dead. Naruto cringed from his hiding spot. Nicked all three for their external jaguar bane. I'm getting better at this, Naruto said to himself. Naruto looked back to the bandit camp and grinned loudly. He was going to enjoy himself. Link break. Naruto had been killing bandits for the past hours. He would separate them from the main pack, sneak into the tents, or just slaughter a group of them. The others, event would be scaring, but for Naruto it was fun. Naruto just finished slaughtering the tents of bandits when he heard a static come through his set. This was suddenly silence as no sound came out of his headset. Naruto waited for several seconds for the person to continue but heard nothing. Suddenly a scream tore through the night, alerting Naruto and the remaining bandits. Oh crap! Naruto said that scream was Sakura and he knew that it was probably alerting the rest of the bandits. It seems like the Plan C was in action. Executing Plan C. Kill all inside. Stealth no necessary. Meet up with the closest comrade, Naruto said through the headsets. Naruto walked up to the tent and saw the remaining bandits running towards the scream. Naruto grinned and spiked his chakra to a tremendous level. The bandits turned around as they saw Naruto's chakra on them. They were greeted by the sight of pure electricity covering Naruto. He had the outline of beast. His eyes were glowing as bright yellow. The sky above him seemed to darken. He grinned and took a deep breath. He then released a deep breath and shook all the bandits to their very core. Naruto disappeared from the bandits' sight. All in all, they were 100 strong and none of them could locate Naruto. They suddenly heard the tremble and rumble of the thunder that instantly confused them. It had been clear night 5 minutes ago. Suddenly, a flash of lightning struck in the middle of the bandit group. Bodies were thrown into the air as the lightning impacted the ground. The still living bandits towards where the lightning struck and saw Naruto crouching and suddenly dropped his weapon and started to go through his hand signs. The bandits started to back away, but Naruto was too fast for them. Naruto finished his hand sign and called out his jutsu. Lightning release, massive discharge. Naruto screamed out. The bandits felt another enormous spike of chakra that seemed to crush them with the pressure. The mayhem broke out. Tendrils of lightning came flying out of Naruto's body, incarnating the closest bandits. The ones that were incarnated were killed by the massive amount of excessive electricity through their bodies. Only the farthest and the luckiest got away and only being paralyzed. Unfortunately, Naruto was not a man of mercy. He killed them with his sword, cutting their throats and impaling them with his sword. That was relaxing, Naruto said to himself, and people said I'm evil. Wow. Kyuubi said sarcastically. Naruto scoffed at the comment. You are. You go destroying mountains and attacking villages just for your own amusement. I killed these men because these are terrorizing that town. See the difference here? Naruto said. Nope. Not really. Murder is murder. Either way, Kyuubi said. Naruto sighed and decided to ignore Kyuubi for now. He suddenly got a weird look on his face. Oh, I forgot. Sakura was screaming. Should probably go help her, Naruto said. Naruto then started to walk towards the scream while listening to a jaunty tone. Shouldn't you hurry up? Isn't your teammate in trouble? Kyuubi said. Nah, she can handle herself, Naruto said. Link break. Sasuke was very conflicted at the moment. His body was filled with a mixture of excitement, anxiety, and fear. That would be the first time he would ever kill anyone. Flashes of massacre that occurred years ago would occasionally come to him. The memory seemed to strengthen his resolve even more. Sasuke never wanted to feel weak as he felt that night. His grip tightened around his kunai as the memories flashed through his mind. His eyes turned steely. Unlike his teammates, Sasuke didn't got so lucky. He didn't find any bandits wandering around the camp. He had been slowly circling his side, waiting for an opportunity for an hour. Suddenly he heard static came through his headset. My side is... Sasuke heard a crash. He waited for several seconds for the person to continue but heard nothing. He then shook it off as a glitch. Sasuke continued scouting the camp, waiting for his opportunity. Sasuke then suddenly heard a loud scream. He immediately knew that the scream was Sakura. Sasuke was about to switch to Plan C, but someone beat him to first. Executing Plan C, kill all in sight, stealth no necessary, meet up with the close comrades. Sasuke heard Naruto said. Sasuke dropped his hands and steely his emotion. He started to go through hand signs. He stopped at least one and took a deep breath. He then let loose a massive fireball towards the retreating bandits. The last thing they saw and felt was a flash of flames and intense flames only a jutsu could make. Link break. Kakashi was currently very bored. The mission, while being tough for his mission, was a breeze for him. The bandits were so drunk and stupid that they were literally falling towards him. All Kakashi had to do was throw a well-placed kunai and send a shadow clone to drag the bodies into the forest. All in all, it was a pretty easy mission for Kakashi. The one thing Kakashi worried about was his team. A team had never assigned to a raid for their first redirect mission. He was scared one of them would freeze up and that would cost them their life. But he knew he couldn't have and leave his post. After an hour of killing, Kakashi heard a static came through his set. The same one that Sakura said. Kakashi heard a loud thump that worried him. After several seconds of waiting, Kakashi began to grow worried. Suddenly, a scream rippled through the night that alerted Kakashi. Kakashi's heart started to pound as he realized that the scream was from Sakura. He was about to take off, but he heard a voice coming through his headset. This was Naruto that said the same message. Kakashi heard Naruto said. Kakashi sighed and jumped out of the tree he was sitting in. He started to go through several hand signs before grabbing his wrist. Slowly, then sound of chirping birds came out of the wind, evident. The retreating bandits turned around and saw Kakashi charging at them with a yell. Lingui, Naruto was dashing through the bandit camps, cutting down anyone in sight. He was dashing towards where he last heard the screams. Any bandits in his way stood no chances. Naruto relentlessly cut them down to the ground. Naruto left every one of them dead or the fatal injuries. After returning and running for several minutes, Naruto reached the opposite of the camp. He looked around but saw nothing and abandoned tents. Naruto suddenly heard another scream coming from one of the tents. He dashed into the tent, his weapon drawn. He saw one of the bandits with his penis dangerously close to Sakura's mouth. Lingui, Juin had been having a very bad day. First, he woke up late and had to go get a turn with one of the capture girls, so he ended up getting dirty 23rds. Second, the other bandits had stolen his portion of lunch while he was off having fun. Third, a pink-haired bitch had knocked him out and covered him with dirt and leaves. But everything was looking up. He was about to rape the pink-haired bitch, and due to how young she looked, he could guess she was a virgin. The minute she was tied. Oh, I am going to enjoy this, Juin said to himself. Juin tried to force his penis into Sakura's mouth, but she would constantly move her head. Sit still, you little whore, Juin said. Sakura continued to move her head. As Juin pressed his penis against her skin, Juin growled and let her arms go. He then released a punch that sent her crashing to the ground. Juin then bent back down to pick Sakura up. Juin was inches away from Sakura before he felt a weird breeze against his head. He heard a thump and looked down. His eyes widened when he saw that his hand was now separated from his arm. Juin started to scream but was silenced by a sword to his throat. He fell to the ground dead. Sakura looked up and saw Naruto standing over the now dead Juin. Tears spilled into her eyes as she lunged for Naruto. Her arms wrapped around Naruto and she sobbed deeply into his chest. Naruto stood awkwardly as Sakura continued to sob. After a while, Naruto slowly pushed her away. Sakura, you need to get yourself together. We're executing Plan C. We need to meet Sasuke and Kakashi in the middle of the camp. Naruto said to her hysterical girl, I thought you hated her. Why are you acting so nice to her? Kyuubi asked curiously. I do. But we are on a mission right now, and we need her to get her shit together, Naruto said. Naruto looked down at Sakura and saw that she was still hysterical. He sighed in anger. Fuck this, Naruto said. Naruto came down to Sakura's neck. She fell gently into Naruto's waiting arms. Naruto threw her over his shoulder and dashed out of the tent. Lingui, Kakashi had just reached the center of the camp. He had slaughtered every single bandit that stood in his way. He saw no one in sight of his team, which confused and scared him. Kakashi was about to take off back into the camp to find his team before Sasuke came into sight. Kakashi saw that Sasuke was physically okay and relaxed. Sasuke, are you okay? Kakashi asked. Sasuke gave a slow nod and Kakashi sighed, as he knew the killing had somewhat affected Sasuke. Kakashi decided to deal with it once they got back to the village. Have you seen Naruto or Sakura? Kakashi asked. Sasuke gave a negative, which made Kakashi even more nervous. He gave off a long and tired sigh. Kakashi almost jumped out of his skin when he heard a loud crash of thunder coming from directly behind him. He felt a long, strong breeze that almost blew him off his feet. Kakashi turned around in defensive position with the kunai drawn. He, however, relaxed when he saw that Naruto, with Sakura thrown over his shoulder, was there. Kakashi's eyes asked the question about what happened to Sakura, which Naruto replied to a twitch of shrug, but indicating she was fine. Kakashi let out a sigh of relief. Okay, officially our mission is complete. Now all we have to do is get rid of the camp. Kakashi said. Naruto's eyes brightened as it is. Kakashi-sensei, may I do the honors? Naruto asked. Kakashi's eyebrow raised at the question. After a bit of thinking, Kakashi shrugged his question, saying fuck it. Naruto handed Sakura over to Kakashi. You and Sasuke may want to step back, Naruto said. Kakashi and Sasuke retreated several feet back. Naruto waved his hand towards them and they took several more steps back. Naruto continued waving his hands. They took even more steps back. Naruto stopped when they were at the edge of the forest. Naruto, satisfied with this distance, started to go through the hand signs. The whole sequence took 30 seconds. Once he was done, he slammed his hands onto the ground. Lightning release. Heaven's wrath, Naruto said silently. Storm clouds started to form above Naruto as sparks came flying off of his skin. The storm clouds managed to cover the whole training ground. Naruto raised his sword to the sky as clouds started to cover. Kakashi and Sasuke looked up towards the sky and saw gigantic clouds covering the camp. Kakashi looked confused and Sasuke looked amazed. Kakashi was wondering what Naruto was about to do. He got his answer when he heard the huge clap of thunder that seemed to shake the very earth itself. Suddenly, a huge flash of light blinding both Sasuke and Kakashi, making the two avert their gaze. When they two finally managed to look back, they were greeted with a shocking sight. The bandit group that seemed to cover several hundred yards was completely gone. There was a cylinder-shaped crater that was several yards deep. Naruto stood in the middle of the crater with his clothes smoking and his sword still held up. Suddenly, the two heard a loud crack. They looked towards Naruto and saw him staring in shock. The sword had broken. It seemed the excessive amount of chakra and electricity had overloaded. Naruto began to weep tears of sadness as he looked down upon his broken sword. The sword was slightly melted and broken into metallic shreds. Tears continued to fall down his cheek as he dug a small hole into the which he buried his shreds in. He pocketed the hilt and got up. Naruto stood to his full height and stretched. He casually jumped out of the crater and walked to his shocked teammates and sensei. He stopped in front of them and looked at them with confused look on his face. There was no evidence on his face that his beloved weapon had just broken. "What's wrong with you guys? You act like you've seen a ghost," Naruto said. Kakashi quickly broke out of the shock and sighed. He knew by now that Naruto was full of secrets. "Nothing, Naruto. Let's just head home." Link break. Team 7 was currently being sent off by a very gracious village. They had saw the bright flash of what they described to be lightning and went to investigate. They discovered that there was the bandit camp used to be was now a gigantic crater. Using the rumors that circled the town was able to conclude that the Team 7 was a ninja and figured that they took out the bandits. They were now forever thankful. "We cannot thank you enough for what you have done for us," the major figure of the village said. Kashi gave him an eye smile and rubbed the back of his head. Don't worry about it. It's just our job, that's all," Kakashi said after getting an array of goodbyes. Suddenly, a loud scream ripped through the crowd. "Naruto-kun!" A voice called. Naruto turned around and saw Amai pushing through the massive crowds of people. She eventually reached the front of, and Naruto saw that she had several bags packed. "Naruto, I want to go with you, and I won't take no for an answer," Amai said with a determined look on her face. Naruto had told her he was going to leave tomorrow, and that was sad part for her. Although the night she had argued with herself, eventually she came up to the decision that this town had nothing to offer. She wanted to go with Naruto, and she would take no for an answer. Okay, Naruto said nonchalantly. Team 7 and Amai looked in shock at the sudden answer. Naruto, are you sure about this?" Kakashi said. "Why not? My apartment is big enough for the both of us, and I wouldn't have mind having a roommate." Naruto said, hearing the definite yes. Tearing started to pool into Amai's eyes. She ran towards Naruto and wrapped him in a massive hug. Naruto grinned and wholeheartedly returned the hug. He sealed Amai's back into his ceiling tattoo and looked at his team. "Well, it's time for us to head home. And this is where I'm going to be leaving this part of, guys. I hope you like this one, and if you do, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. Believe me, guys, I really hate the part where Anko died, but I don't think she's dead. And if she is, then yeah, that really sucks. Either way, I hope you like this one. If you do, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. And this is Apollo Uchiha, and I'm signing out. Peace.